Urge you, Chairman Bose, to allow a vote on the Major Richard Starr Act. This critical and bipartisan piece of legislation that Republican Bilirakis and I are leading will rectify an injustice that has kept combat disabled veterans from receiving their full military and retirement benefits. Currently, over 50,000 combat disabled veterans were medically retired are being shortchanged. They're being shortchanged while costs are going up. Because of an outdated and unfair policy, they're forced to give up a portion of their retirement pay just to receive the disability compensation. They get injured and they can't get their retirement pay. This is wrong. It must end. That's why we must vote and pass the Major Richard Starr Act, which is a bipartisan effort to finally correct this injustice that has affected thousands of our nation's heroes. It's supported by all leading veteran service organizations. It has overwhelming bipartisan support with over 300 co-sponsors in the House. Guys, if we pass this out of committee, if you allow a vote and it gets to the House floor, with 300 co-sponsors, this would pass out of the House floor. It's a done deal. That means 300 votes. This bill will pass the House. I'm urging you not to deny this justice for veterans. It's in your hands. It's your responsibility. You have the decision-making authority to get it out of this committee. It's not just a policy. It's a matter of fairness, a matter of dignity. It's a matter of honoring the promises we make to those who wear the uniforms. I stand with our veterans. This is a pragmatic way to show that you all really care, support our veterans by passing this legislation that will actually improve their lives. Please pass the Major Richard Starr Act out of this committee.
Here to talk about the Major Richard Starr Act. 76 members of this body are co-sponsors. That's a large number. The wounded veterans tax, as it stands now, prevents more than 50,000 combat-injured veterans who were forced to retire to be barred from a full military pension they earned or were promised. They are getting a dollar-for-dollar reduction of their military retirement pay from their VA disability benefits. The reduction, dollar for dollar, in their retirement pay is the result of their receiving those disability benefits for their combat injuries. They've earned both. They are different, separate, and distinct. Right now, under current law, they're deprived of the full benefits of their pension because they were injured in combat. Just to describe this injustice should make our stomachs turn with outrage. The Major Richard Starr Act is really a common sense bill. We use that word common sense all the time in this chamber. In this instance, it seems particularly appropriate. It would right this longstanding injustice, finally provide these military retirees their full VA disability and Defense Department retirement benefits. This cause is not only common sense, it's rightfully bipartisan. Those 76 co-sponsors in this body, also 304 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives. It is the collectively top priority of the military and veterans services organization communities of the United States. Year after year, this bill has stalled. Detractors have worked to deny a simple vote. In public, critics have avoided taking a public position on the bill. They have given lip service to veterans and advocates requesting their support. What their real reasons are, I can't say. We can't balance the federal budget on the backs of combat-injured retirees. Doing so reneges our obligation. It's a sacred obligation to take care of veterans after their time in uniform. The bill doesn't create some great new, overly generous benefit. It would be enormously impactful and beneficial for each of those retirees who would be affected. The average is about $1,200 a month. Some more, maybe some a little bit less. $1,200 a month, you can do the math. It's not a fortune. It would make a difference in the lives of these combat-injured veterans. The benefits we promised And the benefits they've earned are the benefits that are now delivered. It's that simple. Not clawed back, as happens now, from the heroes who have sustained those combat-related injuries. Major Richard Starr, a decorated war veteran and engineering officer in the Army. He suffered from lung cancer caused by burn pit exposure. We all know about Iraq and Afghanistan burn pit exposure. We passed the PAC Act to provide care and benefits for victims of those burn pits and exposure to other toxic chemicals. They led to his retirement and his death in 2021. He was 51 years old. His wife, Tonya Starr, walked these halls by his side. She died in 2024. She called my staff days before her passing in tears because another Congress had ended 2024 without a vote on the Richard Starr Act. Tonya knew the tremendous difference this legislation would make in the lives of caregivers and widows like her.
We cannot possibly add another $10 billion, $9 or $10 billion, to this of entitlement money, to this DOD Authorization Act. This legislation has never been accepted because we simply cannot afford it. That $10 billion, almost $10 billion, has to come out of readiness, out of the strength of our military to defend ourselves in the most dangerous time we've had since World War II. Until authors of this proposal identify a way to offset the expense or to make it less expensive, we should not move forward with this legislation. Therefore, I do object.
Number one, on double dipping, let's be clear that these are two separate programs. The right to payment under each of them is separately deserved. Not everyone who is entitled to retirement pay gets disability benefits. You have to be in that club that nobody wants to join, of being combat injured. It is a separate form of right that in no way involves double dipping, as we commonly refer to it. The retirement pay is for years of service in the military. VA disability compensation is for the loss of future earnings due to service-connected injuries or illnesses. Congress eliminated this offset for nearly 1 million veterans who have served 20 years and have a 50% VA disability rating or higher. It's already dealt with one segment. All the 430,000 veterans who have their military retirement pay clawed back because they are receiving VA disability benefits. We're starting here, or taking the next step, with 50,000 of those 430,000 who, in fairness, should receive both the retirement pay and disability benefits. We're doing it because these 50,000 have combat-related injuries. As to the total cost, the CBO told us that the Republican-supported tax cuts exploded the deficit by about $3.4 trillion. Let me repeat that, $3.4 trillion. Large part tax cuts to people who didn't need them. These veterans need these benefits. This cost is a minuscule fraction of those trillions. This country can afford to do right by these combat-injured veterans. The DoD Office of the Actuary has indicated it could implement the Richard Starr Act in a, quote, actuarially sound manner. A middle ground, since we don't have unanimous consent to the Major Richard Starr Act today, let's agree to a vote. One vote. That's all I'm asking. Give us a vote on passage of the Major Richard Starr bill. It would be passage by a 60-vote margin, filibuster-proof. If we get 60 votes, the bill passes. If not, it goes down. Let's do it before the end of the year. I happen to think that we ought to spend whatever time is necessary on this bill. I understand that leadership is concerned about time. So my proposal strips away all the time-consuming procedural stuff. I have another word for it. It allows us to go forward expeditiously, one vote scheduled entirely at Majority Leader Thune's discretion before the end of the year. It could start and finish in half an hour.
This legislation costing in excess of $9 billion in mandatory spending was not brought forward. Now, why would our friends across the aisle and the President of the United States, who was a Democrat, not advocate for that? Got to make choices when it comes to national defense. Where would we take the money, the $9 billion? Are we going to take it out of salary increases for our junior enlisted people, which is in this bill? Are we going to take it out of munitions? Are we going to take it out of modernization of our nuclear strategic system, which is behind and which needs it desperately? Wave a magic wand and create the money out of thin air. We cannot do it. For that reason, I do object.
$9 or $10 billion that would go to assure fundamental fairness to our military is there, or a great nation should assure it is there, when we're talking about the trillions that we will spend on many other things, some of them very worthwhile. In my view, none more worthwhile than doing right by these veterans. It isn't double dipping. It isn't overly generous. It isn't going to break the bank, so to speak. It is a minuscule fraction. To those veterans, it's not only a matter of quality of life and sometimes survival, it's fundamental fairness. They were promised. They've earned it. They deserve it. They need it. They ought to have it. This measure simply would assure a vote. We ought to face our responsibilities. Maybe my colleagues, even though 76 of them have co-sponsored, that's 3/4 of this body, maybe it would still fail for whatever reason. I'd like to take my chances.
Let's talk about some of your pickup trucks. The Air Force owns and operates DOD's largest fleet of commercial derivative aircraft. They use commercial parts. This, Mr. Secretary, is a bag of bushings. This bag of bushings, stamped out by machinists, don't need a high school diploma. It's not anything high tech about this. All of this bag is compliant with the FAA specifications. How much do you think the Air Force pays for this bag of bushings?
Congressman.
$90,000. This is a $90,000 bag of bushings that you need for any jet turbine engine just to operate. The exorbitant cost due to DOD only buying commercial parts from the OEMs, which is essentially sole source, is literally driving us out of business. The interest on our debt alone is now exceeding, for the first time in American history, the entire defense budget. We can't afford it anymore. With FAA compliant parts, you cut the cost in half or even more. My question is, why can't, these are commercial birds out there. It has all kinds of implications for contested logistics when you can access commercial parts in the middle of a war, potentially in the Pacific. Why can't we use FAA compliant? It's this safety standard leader in the world. Why can't we do that?
I don't know a reason why we couldn't. I'm familiar with some of the issues you're trying to raise here from my previous position.
I know you are. That's why I'm asking you.
Defense Logistics Agency used to report to me. That's where we do a lot of our parts acquisition. We had an issue when I was there with people gouging us, basically, charging us too much for parts. And we ended up in court over it.
Generally, those audits aren't $400 billion for Raytheon and $1.7 trillion for a plane that doesn't seem to be doing. There is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse within a system.
Audit,
Yes.
which is, do I know what was delivered to which place? The ability to pass an audit, or the fact that the DoD has not passed an audit, is not suggestive of waste, fraud, and abuse. That is completely false right there.
So what is
now
it
it's a question
of?
it's suggestive that we don't have an accurate inventory that we can pull up of what we have where.
$850 billion budget to an organization that can't pass an audit and tell you where that money went. I think most people would consider that somewhere in the realm of waste, fraud, or abuse, because they would wonder why that money isn't well accounted for. When I see a State Department get a certain amount of money and a military budget be 10 times that, I see a struggle within government to get people like more basic services. That department that got that, we got out of 20 years of war, the Pentagon got a $50 billion raise. That's shocking to me. Now, I'm a human being who lives on the earth and can't figure out how $850 billion to a department means that the rank and file still have to be on food stamps. To me, that's fucking corruption. I'm sorry.